Hello.
Hello. Fancy meeting you here.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing who you meet
Okay.
on the internet.
Yeah. So we've just gone 6 o'clock.
Yes.
We might just sort of hang on for a little bit and see whether we get some people on here to join us and do some make some comments, or they might have some questions to
hmm
ask. Um, so, did you have a good day today, Lyndal?
I I had an awesome day today. Yes, I did have a good day today. And the sun was shining, so that's always a plus in my life.
Yeah. Well, Jessica and I put up all the Christmas
Oh,
decoration. Well, sort of. We've still got to finish it tomorrow, but we started our
nice.
decorations, which is nice. So the Complete Pet Company
Very
is
good.
looking really flash.
Good. I
Okay, so
haven't even
we've
got a
got.
Christmas tree up in my house, so I haven't
No,
even put
well,
a little Christmas tree up yet.
the trouble is you put them up and then you've got to pull them all down again, which is a bit
Exactly.
disappointing, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what that is falling over in the background that's going to annoy me, but anyway. Um, So, hello, we've got a few people have joined us. I'm Jenny from the Complete Pet Company, and the gorgeous Lyndal, the gorgeous and intelligent Lyndal from
Some days.
Canine Vitality, canine naturopath, and always a wealth of knowledge and fun to have a chat with. We always seem to have a bit of fun on here. I'm really
Mm.
excited this time because I don't have any flies to squat. So or swat, I should say, not squat, which is really good. So tonight, Lyndall, we're going to talk about novel proteins and the facts and myths around that,
Mm.
which I think is a really interesting topic. But first of all, would you like to introduce yourself and just tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, my name's Lyndal Pinchen. I'm a canine naturopath, been in the industry a very long time now. My business is Canine Vitality. I've been working alongside Jenny now we worked out it was 8 years. um,
Oh, wow.
referring back and forth to each other and picking each other's brain for the last 8 years. And my website is www.herbsforhappyhealthydogs.com.au, which I love all my herbs. So anything herbal you can talk to me about.
I
So.
love the dub, 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 dub,
Oh,
dub,
well,
dot.
I can't say www really quickly, or see, I get myself all tied up. So I've got to go dub, dub,
That's,
dub.
that's cool. And I'm Jenny from the Complete Pet Company and Complete Canine Communication, the future of dog training, based in Brizzy. And like Lyndall said, we've been working together for around the last 8 years, which has been fantastic. And like I said, we're going to talk about novel proteins, facts and myths. But before we start, I just thought it might be really interesting to clear up some facts and myths about the Complete Pet Company.
Mm,
Um, so I am always, well, not always, but I am on Facebook and I read lots of things. I don't always comment. And I do get emails from certain people that will email me and say, I heard so and so about the Complete Pet Company, or, what we're doing. And one of the myths out there is that we actually outsource our raw dog food to be produced, outside of the Complete Pet Company. So I just sort of wanted to clear that up a little bit for people that might be a little bit confused about what we actually do.
mm,
So just a bit of background. In 2003, there were 3 women, myself included, and actually a fourth, Tricia, who's still with me today, 20 years, 18 years later, 19 years later, that started the Complete Pet Company. And we actually started manufacturing, would you believe, the complete meal in my bathtub in my house for a short while. And we used to deliver around the area because people were really interested in what we fed our own dogs. And how that all happened was Elaine was actually a raw feeder and I was a raw feeder all the way back then. And we sort of got talking and combined our recipes a little bit. And did a lot of research, and so people around the Gap area in Brisbane wanted to know why we had such healthy dogs. And so we started there, and it was quite funny. We were producing 70 kilos of dog food a week. That's crazy. 70
in a
kilos of dog
bathtub.
food in a bathtub. And I won't even go into how we did that. But anyway, and we used human food processors and all that sort of stuff. And then from there, we fitted out under the house, and we started producing the food. Obviously, we were Safe Food approved all the way back then. We went through a whole process that involved, our program was actually that of restaurant standard all the way back then. And we got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we just my dream was to open a shop, an educational shop, which was the Complete Pet Company, and go from there. So then I had to decide, and all this was done without any money, I might add. I knew nothing about running a business. I didn't know that you had to have money to do that. I really, just had a passion, and I went with that. And so then I had to decide, do I want to start up a manufacturing plant? I didn't really have the money to do that, nor did I want the headache of doing that. I just wanted to produce the food. So we actually got someone, and what we actually do at the Complete Pet Company, just to clear all this up, is I hold the recipe. It's actually locked in a safe at my father's house, the recipe, with a date stamp on it, so that we, if anything happens, we know exactly when that recipe was designed and made. And we actually cut, weigh, fill, measure, do all of those things at the Complete Pet Company. And then those batches are taken to a human grade facility. So we have to provide all certificates for all our ingredients to say that they're all above human grade, food safety, HACCP approved, all the rest. And what they do out there is they actually mix, fill, and freeze and slice. That's all they do. They don't have the recipe. They don't do anything but mix, fill, freeze, and slice. It comes back to the Complete Pet Company, and we pack it at the Complete Pet Company. So for those people out there that have been told or have read it, that we outsource the manufacturing and someone else has control over my food, that is not true. It is a complete myth, and they're the facts. You've heard it from me. So I just wanted to make that very clear to people to understand. That's how the food is made. So we are very, very hands-on as far as knowing exactly what goes into that. I source all the meats. I do all the research. I know exactly what I'm putting in that food every week. So if anyone's got any questions on that, I'd be really happy to answer them.
Well, I just like to actually clarify that. And knowing you as I do, Jenny, and for people out there who, you know, who obviously will have heard what you've said and will believe you, but just to sort of, I suppose, back you up there, I know the blood, sweat and tears that is behind this company. I've seen it in the many conversations and the difficulties and challenges you've had over the 8 years that I've known you. And of course, it went back before me. And nobody works as hard as you do, and nobody knows their product like you do. I mean, for people to be able to come into a company like yours and be able to talk to the person who produces the food, that is pretty darn rare and pretty special, because most of the time you're lucky if you get a 1-800 number to ring, and then you get some chick at the end of the line who doesn't know anything about the product you're ringing about. So kudos to you for that. People should understand that, and that it's pretty, that's a pretty rare thing to be offering that as essentially as a service that you offer, even though I know you're not in the shop as much as you used to be. But yeah, the quality goes from the top right through the whole, right down to the bottom.
Absolutely. And Graham is very, very hands-on as well, as far as he's the one collecting, he's the one cutting everything.
He's a hard worker,
he's the one
too.
measuring. So yeah, that's what what happens. And the factory, like I said, does not have that recipe. Nobody has that recipe. It is completely locked away because we've fallen into the wrong hands quite a few times in my journey. So I'm very, very protective of my recipe.
Understandable.
So thanks for that, Lyndal. And I just wanted to clear that up. So we are going to talk about novel proteins, the facts and myths around that. So I guess my first question to you, Lyndal, would be, can you explain to us, and if anyone's got any questions, please jump in and ask, what is a novel protein? Like when people talk about novel proteins, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. So when we think about the common proteins that our pets might be eating, beef, chicken, they're two of the most common that are farmed, predominantly farmed animal proteins. When we talk about a novel protein, novel meaning that dog or that the dog hasn't actually been exposed or hasn't eaten that particular protein before. It's new to their system, and the protein structure of every meat is a little bit different. Not every protein is exactly the same. So a novel protein is introduced into the body as something that has not been eaten before, and generally, as we were saying before we got on, Jenny, generally they will tend to be more game meats, such as your kangaroo, goat, camel, some of those, which we will talk about soon, venison, those types of proteins that are not every day go to the supermarket, pick up a piece, a chicken drumstick sort of meat. Now, the reason why we might be, I'm probably going ahead here, but I'll go anyway. Just
No,
tell me.
go for it. Go. No,
The reason, why would we want to have why would we use novel proteins? And most of the time these days it's because we are seeing epidemic levels of allergies, and I'll probably put that in quote unquote if you can see on the screen, because sometimes it's not a true allergy. But for dogs that are genuinely diagnosed with a true allergy to, say, beef or chicken, which, as I said, are probably the two common proteins, this is where the vet often will prescribe a novel protein. And there are other ones that they might recommend. They might say duck, or they might say crocodile, or something like that. But it's something that your pet has not eaten before, with the hopes of that being well or more easily tolerated. Because in regards to allergy, whenever I go out into the garden, there's something that irritates my wrist, and I always seem to get a rash from it. Now, the minute that I take my wrist away from that allergen, and it clears up and goes away, it's very short-lived. But if I was to expose that skin to that weed or whatever it is continuously, I'd have a chronic eczema thing there probably. And this is what happens when dogs are chronically allergic to a specific protein. Putting that allergen into the body all the time just continually triggers the symptoms, whether that be ear infections, hot spots, gut upsets, whatever it is. So we want to take that food away and bring in a novel protein, a new protein that is different, and that hopefully the dog will tolerate more easily. And I'll come back to that probably later and talk a bit more about that. But that's basically what our novel proteins are. We're trying to alleviate some of those allergy symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you would agree in saying that that's why we see so many dogs that are fed, say, kibble, for example. They're having problems because most of the things that, most of the species that are used in that are things like beef and chicken. And I might just add in there, the beef and the chicken that are used are intensively farmed as well, which creates another problem. Because they're fed a lot of grains. So we're seeing, high omega-6s in, especially in chicken, that type of thing, which has been another problem that I've seen down the track, where we've had professionals saying, no, don't feed chicken because it's high in omega-6, which it is higher. But if you're having organic chicken, or when I say free range, I mean outside in the sun, eating grass and worms and digging in the dirt, then those levels of omega-6 are not as high as what they would be with intensively farmed. Yep. So what I'm getting at is, we see a lot of dogs with those skin problems and gut problems with kibble. Would that be correct in me to say that?
Yeah, definitely. And of course, there are also many other unmentionables in those products. But yeah, in terms of the protein, once again, yes, that's very true. And also coming back to what you said about, and I'm probably going off a little on a tangent, but what you said about the free range versus factory farmed, of course, we're going to be seeing a lot of chemicals in the form of medications and other preservatives and things that will come through the animal from feedlots and, the food that the animal themselves has been fed to fatten them up, to take them to slaughter. That's coming through the food chain and creating all sorts of things, and often mimicking allergy symptoms. So this is where the whole novel protein thing for me gets interesting, because the dog that has the true allergy does do potentially well on a novel protein, but is that a true allergy? And that's where some of the gets a bit blurry there. And from my perspective, there's a lot of dogs out there who are walking around that are supposedly allergic to certain proteins, and they're not really allergic, they're hypersensitive, and that's a very different issue, and that can be fixed in a different way. So
Yeah. And it's interesting because I remember originally we, the complete meal started off with chicken, and it was organic chicken, of course. For me, it was for ethical reasons over, I guess, nutritional reasons. I would be honest to say that. And then kangaroo came along. That was the second one, and that was really difficult for me because I grew up on a cattle property, and my mother raised kangaroos in the Central Western District of New South Wales, and raised joeys, and so I got to see what kangaroos are like, and they're pretty special. I remember having them in the lounge room. I remember them hanging on in bags over the Rayburn stove. So
cool.
it was very difficult for me to do kangaroo. And then leaving that alone with the beef, and everyone kept saying, no, don't feed beef. It's a no, dogs react to beef. And I think I've said this before on a live, or I don't know, it was early hours of the morning. And I thought, hey, is it the beef, because dogs eat beef. Is it the beef, or is it actually where the beef comes from that is the problem? So I went out on a limb and started to, research beef. And then I, got a broker, and we looked at all of that, and I started producing beef that was basically paddock to plate. And we put many dogs with skin allergies on beef. No problem at all. So again, even though we're talking about novel proteins, I think we need to really look at the source of the meat, where it's coming from a nutritional point of view, a health point of view, but also an ethical point of view, because I think the two go together. We can't love our dogs at the expense of animals living a terrible life. I think we have to look at a much bigger picture. Okay, so let's go back into the novel proteins. Has anyone got a question that they would like to ask at this point? Just pop it in the comments section, and I can have a look at those as we go along. So you mentioned novel proteins, and you rattled off some of them. So you said goat, kangaroo. What else did you say?
Well, I mentioned the camel, venison, and also more ones that I know you don't produce, such as crocodile and emu, and and duck as well, because I actually have, as I said to you before we came on today, I've got a number of clients who come to me, and they've actually been, and I won't be mentioning any brand names, of course, but they've been put onto crocodile, for example, or even emu meat, that sort of meat. So I'm sort of interested to, firstly, I suppose, ask you why you don't produce, duck. We know that duck is pretty hard to find, but in terms of, say, crocodile and emu, so if you've gone kangaroo, which I know is a difficult decision for you, and more recently camel, why not duck? Why not crocodile and emu? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you can, for me, you can just go a little bit overboard with species. You could have so many species, and it becomes very confusing for people. But crocodile, for me, it's farmed. And I don't agree with it. I don't agree with people walking around with crocodile handbags and crocodile belts. And I'm certainly not going to support a trade like that. For me, it's not going to happen. So I have been asked that over the years. I just couldn't do with it, I just couldn't do it. And emu, again, it's just, for me, it's just not one that I'm interested in producing. I think we have a really good range of novel proteins. And duck, that's a definite no-no, and that is definitely from an ethical point of view for me. To find organic duck, good luck in the amounts that we need to produce.
Mm.
Most ducks are living in really horrific environments that are factory farmed, and I'm not doing that. I refuse to do that.
Mm.
I find it a really fatty meat, and for me,
Mm.
it's not something I would use.
Yep.
There's sort of many others that people have suggested over the years, and I just go no, 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 no. I'm quite happy with what we have. One of the first species I looked at 8 or 9 years ago now, I was trying to work out, and I didn't look at paperwork, which is really naughty of me, but I needed something to help all these dogs with skin problems and gut problems, and it was a novel meat, and that was goat.
Mm.
So that was like 9 years ago. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember any raw dog foods out there using goat at that time. There are a lot now.
Mm.
And we were using this amazing goat, and we were seeing great results with the goat. So we produced it for many, 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 many years. And then all of a sudden, we started to have problems getting it. Goat is an export meat. It's a very, very expensive meat, very expensive. And so we found it difficult to get. And we had a lot of, suppliers of different products saying to us, but you can get a product called pluck, which
Mm.
is goat pluck. And pluck means basically all the insides when they slaughter an animal that are pulled out. So it's got, the liver and the kidney and the heart and the trachea and all sorts of bits and pieces that fall out onto the floor, I guess, and they're really good quality meats or organ meats and offal to feed your animal. But for me to produce a complete meal based on 85% protein based on pluck, there is no way I would do that.
Mm.
I think it's too rich. It's not right. There's no muscle meat in there whatsoever.
Mm.
It stinks. From what I gather, dogs don't like it that much.
Mm.
And I don't think it's the right thing to be doing. So we pulled up on that, and I just went, look, when we can get goat, we'll use it. And it is, I would say, one of our biggest sellers. So for us, we took a big hit with that.
Mm.
But I just decided I wasn't using pluck. I probably could have and said, yes, it's a muscle meat and it's goat. So that's great. Everybody, you're feeding goat, but it is pluck. And yeah, it's good, but not in those amounts.
So,
Mm.
Jenny, why with goat? So people understand, what is it about goat that is so good for the gut and the skin in terms of the protein?
Yeah, well, I've got notes here because I have to remember all of these things. But
Yeah.
it is naturally lean,
Mm.
which is really good. So it's lower in saturated fats and cholesterol. So that's a good thing when we're dealing with dogs with gut problems and skin problems. Um, the molecular structure of goat meat is very different to that of beef or chicken, which is really good for those dogs that are needing that extra boost. And it's a very, very, very easy meat to digest. We find dogs that are that we use it a lot for dogs that are coming off a processed. When I say processed, I'm meaning kibble. A processed diet onto something. We always used goat because it was so easy for dogs to digest, which was
Mm.
really important. It's got all the good nutrients in it that goat needs. So lots of really high quality benefits for goat.
And, and you'd be happy with a pup that comes into you, say a 5 or 6 month old puppy, or it may be even younger, a puppy, but that's already showing some signs of, say, gut or skin distress. Would you be comfortable using goat? Is there enough fat in that for a puppy?
Yeah, I'm a bit. I love
I know you
puppies
like
to
your
eat
fat
fat.
puppies.
Yeah. I love puppies to be roly poly fat. God, shoot me down, all of you out there. And I also, puppies need fat. They need
Yep,
that energy, they're
definitely.
burning it. So good fat is good, you know.
Mm.
Um, if Yeah, it's a difficult one. I'd probably phone a friend, Lyndal Pinchen, and say, Lyndal, I've got a 5 6 month old dog that's got some issues. What are we going to do?
Mm.
It would depend on what it was, but I'd probably be more inclined to go for something like pork.
Mm.
In that, because pork is easily digested as well, and it
Mm.
does have that fat, and it's quite a good meat.
Mm.
Is it classed as a novel or not? I don't know. Yeah, there's
Somewhere
different,
in the middle there.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
schools sort of out
Well,
on
well, I
that one.
think if we're talking about your pork, we know the quality there. Like the quality is amazing, so
Yeah,
that
it's
would be
beautiful.
very different. It is so very, very different to the really horrible fatty pork that you
Yeah,
might buy at your butcher that's full of toxins. So it's a very
yeah.
different thing. Yeah.
Yeah, would I? Wouldn't I? I'd probably look at other options first, where I would try another species, and then probably look at you to go in on the inside and help clean that up as well. So I'd probably work with you and meats
Mm.
and see how we go. But
Mm.
I find I am a bit iffy about putting young dogs on such a lean meat, like a game meat. It's
Mm.
yeah, it
Mm.
that they're hungry. If we have to, even the same as adults, we might need to feed a lot more of it,
Mm.
um, because there's nothing worse than a hungry dog, because that creates stress
Stress.
and all
Yeah.
sorts of issues like that. So, yeah, goat is beautiful, and like I said, we've taken a big hit with the goat, but I just draw a line in the sand and go, no, not using pluck. If I can't get it, we don't produce it. Which is,
Yeah.
we just produced a batch just recently, which I think we did about 400 kilos, and it just walked out the door.
I know
People were
everyone
ordering
wants
it.
it. They're always asking for it. And I
Yeah,
think that was the
yeah,
thing for, as I've been consulting and having to now transition to other meats that are available, the classic combination for me was to put the client's dog onto goat and give them roux tails, if we're talking skin and those types of issues.
exactly.
And the
Yeah.
combination just worked a treat. So it works very well. But transitioning on from that, Jen, goat is difficult for you now. So you've had to, and I know we had a little conversation a while back, you had to think now about what you were going to do in terms of having an alternative. So where did you go then?
Yeah, so that was a big one,
Mm.
and this has been in the media just recently, and it was a big thing for me to do. But, my whole life has been going out on a limb and taking a risk. So I decided to do some research into to camel meat. And like I said, camel meat has been in the media, and a lot of people were quite scared of it. And that's because, so first looking at camel meat, for me, it was sort of up there with goat and kangaroo, I guess, because it's a fantastic source of protein. We know about camel milks and camel cheeses and how fantastic they are.
Mm.
But it was also very, very, well, it is also very, very low in fat. So it's around, 2.93% fat. So it's sort of, around that kangaroo. Um, and it's also really high in unsaturated fats. So I found that really good. And I found it quite interesting because the fat is actually stored in the hump of the camel, not in the meat of in the muscle of the camel,
Mm.
which I thought that was quite interesting. And the other thing that I found fascinating is that it's really high in moisture. So for
Mm.
me, that was a great thing when we're talking about dogs with skin problems and allergies and all those types of things, because when you have a species that is really high in protein, it's actually flushing out the cells, moving the toxins out of the body and the organs, and also keeping the skin moist. So I just went, wow, this is really interesting. And it's not something that I have seen in the raw dog food industry here in Australia. So watch this space. Um, So it's really high in micro and macronutrients, which is quite interesting. And it's got all the vitamins and the minerals, those micro and macronutrients. It's also quite high in carnitine and taurine, which I thought is a great thing as well. Um, then comes the bad bit.
Here's the myth.
Here's here's the facts and the myths, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is when my phone call went to phone a friend, Lyndal. Lyndal, I'm thinking of producing camel meat, but there is a problem with camel meat. So it has had a bad rap because of the fact that it eats a toxic plant called Indigofera. And so I started to do some research into Indigofera, which is it's a legume, and there's over 700 species of it, and it's found throughout the world, but it's also found in a lot of states in Australia. For example, it's found in Queensland, Western Australia, Northern Territory, New South Wales, and South Australia. So basically, throughout. And in that plant, and that plant does really well in flood and drought. So it's a really hardy plant.
Mm,
But the Indigofera plant carries a toxin, indospacine, which affects the liver. And dogs, for some reason, are highly susceptible to that toxin.
mm,
So if they eat the meat of animals that eat that plant Indigofera, it can kill them,
mm,
right?
mm,
So, and we know, and I wrote down here, Lyndal, because these are, for example, of recent studies. So they found out animals have been eating this. So horses, cattle, rabbits, camel, and goats all eat the Indigofera plant.
mm,
And so when we look back, and they only found that out in the 1950s, but if we look back, so 1984, 30 dogs from Alice Springs actually died after consuming horse meat. So it was horse meat from locally slaughtered horses. In 2009, 4 dogs suffered severe liver disease after consuming camel meat in Western Australia. And more recently, which is the one that everybody was talking about in 2021, so this year, just not so long ago, 25 dogs lost their lives after consuming herbivores that had eaten the Indigofera plant. Um, and this is terrible because these tragedies shouldn't have happened. So I was really, really concerned. Like, I love the protein. I think the protein is great. And for me, it was like, this is a species that I can use instead of goat when I can't get goat. But now I have to find a supplier that produces goat that is free of Indigofera. And I might also say here that um, the actual indospacine, the toxin, will stay in the body of the herbivore that's consuming that plant on a regular basis. But once that animal stops actually consuming the Indigofera plant, it takes several months, so 7 months, for the toxin indospacine to be removed out of the system. So I thought, okay, let's look into that some more. Um, and I actually did end up finding an amazing farmer who is obviously here in Australia. And what they do is, if they bring camels in from the wild, they're actually kept out, they're farmed on Indigofera free pastures, and they have them for at least 12 months, if not longer, before that meat is slaughtered. And there is a veterinarian who I have spoken to in great detail. I've really picked her brains about this because I was scared about it. Um, and those animals, those camels, are tested regularly, and they are totally free of the Indigofera plant or indospacine. So I thought I'll do a trial. And of course, who to trial the food on but my own dogs? Okay. which I've been feeding my dogs camel for quite a while now. It is the most amazing species. And we are finding, when people are coming in and wanting goat and we haven't got it, we're putting them onto this particular species. And it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm so happy with it. And I can guarantee it is Indo-Spacine free. There is that toxin is not in the body.
Yeah, and I think that's really good to be able to confirm that, because you know what it's like when people read a little something or see something in the media or on the internet, alarm bells go off immediately and everyone goes into panic stations and they paint, everybody with the same brush, unfortunately, without actually. And I know that, you've had some emails to that effect, that being concerned that maybe your product isn't safe or whatever. But I just wanted to throw a little story in there, because nothing to do with the toxin, but I've been now prescribing camel as an alternative to goat for the reasons that I mentioned before. The dogs do so well on the goat, and I'm just going, oh no, I can't get goat. I've got to give something else now. So probably since you've been doing the camel, I immediately started to prescribe camel as an alternative. And it's really shown itself to me to be very reliable. A case in point is a small dog I've been treating now for about, I guess, 3 months, a little Mick, who's a little fox terrier who lives near me. And I did a home visit for this dog about 3 months ago because she wasn't too far away from me. And this dog had a whole myriad of skin allergies, but on top of that was extremely fussy, just wouldn't, dogs that'll eat something for 2 days and go, no, not eating that anymore, and that type of scenario. And the owner was finding it incredibly frustrating. She was very hesitant about trying something natural because she said nothing's been working, blah blah. Anyway, 3 months on, not only has that dog basically the allergies seem to have all gone now, but more to the interest to her is every time I speak to her, she goes, oh my God, Mick's still eating the camel. I can't believe it. He loves it. So I put Mick onto camel because I couldn't get goat. And this dog just went nuts on the stuff and has done incredibly well and continues to do well. And she is absolutely flabbergasted, because this was a dog who just would not eat. It was just inconsistent all the time. And I said to her, well, a lot of this is to do with gut balance and all of that. But just a nice little story, I suppose, to just show how good quality and how effective that meat is on the same problems that we were dealing with the goat. So
absolutely. It is beautiful. Our dogs love it. I don't feed it all the time because it is very low in fat. But, and I like to mix my spread. They get, we produce, and of course, QA are the 6 dogs in my lounge room right now. So they're the ones that are, always testing the foods, and I'm playing in it, smelling it, doing all of the rest. So it's beautiful, and I'm very, very happy. And the other thing that I might just add here, the farmer is a biodynamic farmer. So this whole property is chemical free, pesticide free, and these camels are actually handled in a stress-free manner. So they're extremely well cared for. So that makes me happy as well. So it was a bit of a gamble. It was a lot of reading on my behalf just to understand how toxic this plant is, and just to give everybody an idea of how scary it actually is. So, then I start to think, wow, if someone went out west somewhere and shot a goat where this indigofera plant is and fed it to their dogs, that is so dangerous. So this camel meat that we're feeding, for example, or shot a camel and cut it up and fed it to their dog, and have been eating the indigofera plant. It's deadly. This is all human-grade meat. This is going through a human-grade abattoir, and it's being sold to restaurants and things. So, this is all above board camel. But just to give you an idea, Lyndal, of how toxic Indo-Spacine is, our Indigenous people, the Aboriginals of Australia, actually used to use it. They would get the leaves of the indigofera plant, the Australian native Linnaea plant, and they would crush up the leaves and they would put them in the water, and that would stun the fish and the eels so they
Incredible.
could catch them.
Wow.
Um,
Is it a non-detectable poison?
yeah, I actually, I was, yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Like
No,
hemlock?
no. And, and they've found that, in cattle, it will cause abortion as well.
Mm, mm,
Um, so, and deadly, like I said, to dogs. Dogs are extremely susceptible to it. So my advice would be, for any raw feeders out there, don't just feed, um, you know, animals that have been shot out there, because that Indigofera plant is throughout Australia. It's
yeah.
everywhere. I mean, I think there's even been cases of it around Samford and, close by as
Mm,
well. So there's quite a bit of information on it. But, I had a lady come into my shop one day and she saw the camel in the freezer. And her response was, she went, "Camel, that's interesting." She Googled it and she stood there and she said, "Oh my God, camel kills dogs. I cannot believe you are so irresponsible," and walked out of the shop.
mm. And this is why
Um,
we're talking now, because it's important that
exactly.
people understand that, yeah, a little bit of information is a dangerous thing. So a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. So it's important to note that. Mm,
Yeah, and we've put on the website, we've put quite a bit of information on there about the Indigofera plant,
mm,
in the Indospercine toxin, and we've made that very clear. We've put it on the label that it's
mm.
Indigofera free. So yeah, we complete meal camel is beautiful, and I'm really proud that we're using it. So
Great.
great
So
species.
yeah, that's awesome, and I'm growing to love it too, because, as I said, I hadn't had a lot of experience with it prior to. I had experience with camel milk, but not, which is just to plug camel milk. It's fantastic for gut health, but the meat itself, I hadn't had much experience. So then, I guess to talk a little bit more about kangaroo, Jen, because I think a lot of people. That is probably one of the most common novel proteins. In fact, I was doing a little bit of
Yeah,
reading this morning, and well, it was ironically it was an American website, but they noted they noted kangaroo as being the most popular novel protein. I suppose we all know that camel. Oh God, now I'm going to keep saying camel. Kangaroo is a very high protein, and a very low allergy meat. But I suppose the biggest issue for a lot of dogs with kangaroo for me is the leanness of the meat. We
very lean.
certainly don't
Yeah.
want to be putting puppies on this. And I love kangaroo meat in the sense that it's a very effective meat, but I do find it strips the weight back so incredibly quickly. And when I'm doing a gut regime with a dog and I've had to put them on kangaroo for whatever reason, I'm finding those dogs are really probably losing too much weight, and I've got to start to bulk them up by giving extra, more volume, basically. So, but I know you like kangaroo from the point of view that's an effective meat. Is there any issues that you see around kangaroo other than the fact that you wouldn't be wanting to feed it as a main meat for puppies, for example?
Yeah, I would never give it to puppies. I would never. I've even stopped people getting it out of the freezer for puppies and said, look,
Mm,
so we always ask people how old the dog is, what's wrong with it. I might just say the reason that I actually started producing kangaroo, complete meal kangaroo, was not actually as a novel meat. It was for pancreatitis. I was looking for
yeah.
something um, for dogs suffering from pancreatitis, and that's a whole different story. Why
Mm,
dogs get pancreatitis, how that happens. We're not going to get into that today, but that's actually why I started using it. But you remember Titta? She's passed on
mm,
now, but
mm,
I fed Titta kangaroo. She loved it but honestly, she would lose weight overnight, Lyndal. Like she got
mm.
like I had to just stop feeding it to her.
Yeah, it
Um,
leans off so quickly. Yeah.
yeah, but I would never feed it to puppies. But again, I think it probably isn't my go-to
No.
meat. I would more be inclined to go, goat or now camel. And to be honest with you, it's taken me, I'm going to be really honest here. I know I'm live and I know this could end up anywhere, but um, I really have a problem with kangaroo, producing kangaroo. And many times I've wanted to pull it. But it is a good meat and it's great. Cats love it, believe it or not. I don't know
Yeah,
why, but cats
they,
actually do
they love it.
extremely well on it. And the way I guess I justify this, without getting into a whole argument on it over the internet, but I sort of figured for me, if I was a wild animal, whether it be a goat or whether it be a kangaroo or venison or whatever, I would love to live my life wild and then see a set of lights, hopefully with professional shooters. And these guys are out there doing a job. They're not out there weekend warring and
No,
just
no,
shooting
they're
anything,
one shot kill. Yeah.
See a set of lights and bang, oh, my life is over. That's how I'd want to live my life, rather so than
Mm,
farmed.
mm, mm.
So yeah, kangaroo. I'm yeah. I I'd sit on the fence with it. It's not one that I really love, but I
Mm.
see a lot of dogs do really well on it, and it is our go-to for pancreatitis, and it works extremely well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
look, my thing, I actually have a bit of an ethical issue with kangaroo myself, but that aside, because that's not relevant here, is that although I do use kangaroo, once again, it's not my first choice. Sometimes I'll use it because I can't, can't get anything else or whatever. But the one thing I will say with kangaroo, and I've experienced this with my own dogs over the time, is that it can be extremely rich for some dogs, and they
Yeah.
can just, Rabi, my Sluky, he would down kangaroo in a minute, and then 2 seconds later he'd bring it all back up. He could not tolerate, he couldn't keep kangaroo in his gut. It just made him vomit all the time. And I've experienced that with clients, dogs that have just not been able to handle it. So there is that aspect of it being a very rich gamey meat, I suppose. Some dogs just don't do so well on it from that perspective. So yeah, not the first choice that I would go to by any means, but it is in there for me. It is one that I
Yeah.
find some dogs can do very well. And yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, for pancreatitis, it works a treat. So
Oh, it's
um,
brilliant. Yeah,
it is,
really,
it
really
is
good. It
yeah,
has high antioxidant properties in the meat as well.
yeah,
It is a good meat. I mean, it is a good meat because it's a wild animal, and
yeah,
yeah, we better get off kangaroo because
yeah,
it's a very touchy subject. And like I said,
yeah,
I grew up with them, and yeah, I,
yeah.
they're
And
a
I
beautiful
suppose,
animal.
yeah, and I suppose the other one that you do and you've done for a while now is venison. And
Yeah,
I was interested when you brought that onto into your range. Interested just from no other reason than curious to see how dogs would do on venison. So how do you find that dogs tolerate venison? It's actually not one I prescribe very much, only because I'm dealing with other issues that really need goat and camel and things like that. So
yeah. So we looked at venison, and I was sort of a bit iffy about it as well. So what I did is, I've always been a single protein type girl. I wasn't
mm,
really big on mixing proteins, but
mm,
I sort of thought venison goat has a nice ring to it. I thought that might be a really good recipe. So we started making venison and goat together. So we did a goat, and then we did a complete meal venison slash goat, and
mm,
that was working extremely well. And I think venison is a good species because we get our venison from New Zealand,
mhm,
and it is. They're free roaming animals, and so
mm.
they're eating species appropriate nutrients.
Giant. Mm,
So they're eating what they should be eating.
mm,
And then that is, they're very healthy, they're wild, they're, good muscle, lean. So they have higher levels of omega-3, which is
mm.
good, much higher than a lot of other pasture-fed animals. So I'm actually, it's not one I guess that people know a lot about, but
No.
it's doing well. I'm happy with venison. I really like it. What have I got written down here about it? I could go through all the B1s, 2s, 3s, 6, E's, K's, all of those, zinc, magnesium, phosphorus, all
Mm.
those, normal things that meat have. It is a lean option, and I guess like camel, like goat, like kangaroo, it's easily digested by the dog.
Mm.
Um, they like it. I'm happy with it. It's moving up the chain a little bit. So obviously we don't have the venison goat anymore. We just have the straight venison, and
Mm.
yeah, it's doing quite well. I think it's just people going, oh yeah, I might try that.
Mm.
I remember a guy came in recently, and I was probably a month or so ago, and he said to me, oh, I can't feed the goat. What am I going to do? I said, try the camel, and he went, camel, and I went, yeah, give it a go. So I saw him last week. He came into the shop last Saturday and he bought 5 boxes of camel. And I went, how's the camel going? He said, oh my God, the dogs love it.
Mm.
Absolutely love it. So
Mm.
I think, the same with the venison. It's just one of those species that we probably haven't really fed a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm happy with it. My
Yeah.
dogs eat it. And dogs seem to do really well on it.
Yeah.
I'll
And I
just
think,
butt in there. Sorry.
yeah, yeah. No, no, go, go.
I was just going to say, Pat, I am going to get to your question. I've seen it there, and I'll actually type it in so that you've got the spelling correct, and then you can read. Good question. Just Pat's just wanting to know the name of the Indigofera plant
Oh,
and the Indospicine, the names of it. And she
yeah.
also says, I can't find the. I was wondering if it's in goat milk as I feed that. No,
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 imagine it
no.
would come
And
with milk.
if you're buying goat milk from a reputable place, then no, it's absolutely fine.
Mm.
It's
Yeah, yeah. I was just going to say back then on what you were saying about the protein, the single protein thing, Jenny, that, when we are dealing with um, allergy situations, which for the dog is predominantly a skin issue, that we do need to remember that high quality and good levels of protein is essential to offset a lot of the allergy issues as well. Although there's a lot of other things going on with allergies, feeding protein. Many dogs that have got allergy signs and symptoms are protein deficient. So by feeding these high quality proteins, that's important. But I was going to say to you before, just got a couple of minutes before you might want to answer any questions. I was going to say, because some people will sort of say to me, well, my dog's been on goat or been on camel for 6 months now or 12 months now. What, is there or let's say 6 months, is there something else I can feed? Am I allowed to feed anything else? Now, traditionally, if your dog has been under a vet and they've been put on an elimination diet, which is generally where you will see these single proteins, as in a single protein and nothing else, no vegetables or anything like that. That's not quite what I'm talking about here, but in terms of having a dog on one particular protein for many, many months, can that dog stay on that protein? Well, yes and no. I mean, variety is the spice of life, and we do want to, if that dog has been doing very well on that one particular protein, let's use the example of camel because we've been talking about that a bit. 6 months in, the dog has become stabilized with the skin or whatever the issue might be. Can we start to challenge with a new protein? Absolutely. Because what I want people to understand is that so many times, and I'm seeing this like in the last 2 weeks, I think this has been 4 or 5 dogs for me that have got these severe allergies and what appear to be severe allergy signs, and they're not tolerating proteins, and they're on a single protein or something like that. Until we get in there and address why that's happening. Yes, there are dogs with true allergy problems that have hereditary tendencies to that, and sometimes you can't override that. But if these are dogs that have got gut issues, that have got leaky gut issues or other issues around the immune system, which is impacted when the gut's out of balance, then it doesn't matter it does matter what you feed, but it doesn't matter how long you feed a novel protein for. It's not going to fix the problem until you get in and do all of that work. So that is why, and this is what people need to understand, that is why when people are on your food, That is why their dogs do very well, because it's the high grade, high quality food, but then it's also because we're doing a lot of other work underneath all of that, whether it's me or whether it's you yourself working with that client or customers. So it's very important that people understand that novel proteins have their place. And yes, you can keep a dog on that for long term, as well as long as it's balanced with in such as a food like yours. But keeping them on a long term regime of one single protein and not addressing the gut is highly problematic, or at least I feel that it's highly problematic, because you're not addressing the issue, and then there's nutritional deficiencies, all sorts of other things that can go on. So
it's sort of like, I guess, the same as, something saying, I've tried homeopathy, it doesn't work. It does work, but probably the remedy that you're using is
the wrong one.
Is the wrong one. So therefore, people are really sort of like, nah, I've tried that, doesn't work, And so what you're saying is very, very true. I mean, I rotate my species simply because I can, whatever we produce, Gray brings home, the dogs eat it. But there are certain times if I bring a new rescue dog in that I might start them if they've got, smelly breath, which is gut, not mouth, diarrhea, all that type of thing. I might put them onto a novel meat. But, as soon as I start to see things stabilise, I do change them over. And I am one for fat. I love, well, look at me. No, I mean, I love good fat. And Lyndal, I got to tell you, the last two rescue dogs I've brought in, Gracie May and Phyllis. Gracie May, all she wanted to eat was fat. So I would give her like a beef bone or something, and all she would eat was the fat off the meat. Right? And that tells a story in itself. We must not deny these dogs good fat. It's so important for them, And I think a lot of the time we're seeing dogs that are lean and muscular, but are those muscles just like superficial, Are they really defined, good, healthy, strong dogs? And lean, too lean, they don't have the fat. So I think novel meats are great, but yes, if you've gone in and with a scrubbing brush and cleaned up inside, which is your job, as well as support the system, then change them over, and we've had dogs, even with pancreatitis, we've had them on kangaroo, and it might be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, and we've actually got them back onto chicken, complete meat chicken, So
that's right.
it's it's definitely good to put them on it, but I would not ever feed, a very low fat protein permanently. I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, just on that, I suppose, the interesting thing is, as you know, lean dog is a hungry. If it's dog's too lean and it's hungry, then it's stressed. But the interesting thing there is when you do bring in good fat, and I suspect that this was partly what was happening with Gracie May, is that there's a lot of not only essential fatty acids, but choline and inositol and other nutrients that the brain requires for calming, for basically brain food. So that's why a lot of those types of fats help heal the brain as well and reduce neurological type and neurotic type symptoms. So that's really important that dogs do get plenty of good fat in various different forms. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Pat, there you go. I don't know if you're still here or not, but just let me know if you can see that. So that's the name of the plant. You could pronounce it indigofera, but it's actually indigofera, and it could be indospicine, but it's indospicine, and that's the toxin. So if you put that into Mr. Google, you'll find a lot of really, really good information. But you'll also find a lot of articles saying, don't feed dogs camel. It is deadly. It is dangerous. And I absolutely agree it is, unless you are sourcing it like we do from somewhere where I know it is absolutely free of those toxins.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
Anything else that we wanted to sort of fill in? Because we've done our hour,
cool.
which is really good. We've talked about facts and myths on those species and why we use them and why we don't use them. Also, complete meal and the facts and myths around my company and how I produce that food, which I think is important for me because I read a lot of stuff on Facebook, and I also
Mm,
get, like I said, emails from people who tell me about conversations going on in the background. And
mm,
also, just so people know, we do a freeze dried product as well. We don't have a freeze dried camel at the moment, sorry. But that means for those people down south, because um, uh, COVID really knocked us around. We lost around 50% of our sales from down south because of freighting and that type of thing. So we do have the freeze dried products, and we can send that out in the mail, which means that you just add water and it reconstitutes back into the frozen, or not frozen, but the raw complete meal,
mm.
um, which is a great product as well. It's fantastic.
Very good. Mm.
So yeah. Okay, Lyndal, I think that's about it.
I think we've covered it. Yep.
Yeah, and this is it was a great chat, and I really loved it because we actually hadn't organised what we were going to say. We just said we're going to wing it.
We winged it. We
We're going to
wung it.
wing it. We're going to wing it. And we did, and I think hopefully some people got some good information out of it. This is
Yeah.
going to be our last live for this year because we've both got a bit on. Um, So
Where does
we
that
will
year gone?
come back. I know. We will come back next year. And we've had a little bit of a chat about this, what we thought we might do next year, which I think will be a lot of fun. And that is bringing live some of our customers, just the general public that have used um, Complete Meal, Complete Canine Communication, and Canine Vitality to, help their dogs um, along the way, and just sort of talk to them and interview them. So if you would like to be one of those peoples, in any of those areas, whether it be behavior, whether it be just, we've helped you out with a harness or lead skills or good treats or good food, and Lyndal going in there and doing her amazing work as well. We would love to get you on here live to have a chat with Lyndal and I. So I think that would be a bit of fun. So we're sort of looking at doing that next year. And also I'd like to get Jessica, who works for me, on here to talk about breeds, because she's been madly all year doing a lot of breed studies, which is very, very important. So I would like to bring her on as well, just to talk about specific things and the differences in breeds and what we should be looking at when we're thinking about getting a dog and why certain dogs behave the way they do. So we've sort of got a lot lined up for next year.
Cool.
Did you want to say anything, Lyndall?
No, I just wanted to say I've enjoyed these chats. You know, I'm a show off. I like being on the camera. I don't mind a bit of a chat. That's the Leo in me. But no, I've enjoyed it. Like you and I have always been able to banter quite easily, and it's very comfortable, and it's a very, it's just an easy platform. And I hope people get some benefit from that, and that they, that they can utilise that in the lives of their pets. And that, and looking forward to having a little bit of downtime over Christmas, but coming back again in the early, like in New Year, when we're both back on deck and doing some more stuff together. So that'll be good. And I hope
Yeah.
everybody has a beautiful Christmas, a very safe Christmas, with all the restrictions that may or may not be in place for certain people.
Yes, yes. Well, oh God, that's another time. Let's not even go
Let's not
there.
even go there.
And and we'll have a newsletter come out. Susan's working on that now, the end of the year. But I'd just like to say to people, for Christmas, instead of giving presents, donate money to organisations that really need help. Especially now with all the, and it's not just dogs. This is not about dogs. This is about all animals, that are needing our help. And I just think, instead of buying things, donate money to those shelters or organisations. Animals Australia is one that I
That's one of
donate
my
to every
favourites.
month.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One
the
of my favourites.
orangutans, koalas, there's so many. Or it might be your local shelter. Give them money, donate money. They desperately need it. There are so many animals out there in need. And, we don't need to be buying stuff that, I don't know, ends up in drawers. So
Mm,
donating is always a good thing. I think anyway, help the
mm.
charities out.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I hope everybody has a very safe Christmas and that you get to spend some time with your pets and that they have a really good time as well. Have some family time with pets in the family as well. So
Well, I know my pets and I will be watching lots of like
Netflix.
series and oh yes. Okay, so Anne, thanks for being here, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you next year. Jess, yes, we're going to get you on for sure. Liana, Pat, I hope you got that question, and Gray, of course, that's my Gray, and thanks, Lyndal.
No
Have a great
worries.
Chrissy, everybody. See you in the new year if Jess and I don't see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year! It's my
Happy New
birthday,
Year.
New Year's Eve. Just thought I'd put that in there out there.
Yay.
Bye.
She wants presents.
Donate, donate.
Donate,
Bye.
donate.